my thoughts on Itzhak Perlman. Sooner or later I had to make a video about Perlman. So if from the outset I had to give you a summary of what I'm going to say, it would be this. I am a super massive Perlman fan. I haven't met Perlman personally, although I did go to one of his concerts and see him backstage and got my program signed by him. First of all, I think what I wanted to say is that he is an incredible example for disadvantaged people, disabled people, people that have been dealt a bad card, in his case early in life, and not everyone's going to be a Perlman, but because he's an incredibly rare type of human being. But the point is that he realised, okay, I'm disabled. He was stricken with polio. What am I going to do now? I know, I'll just immerse myself in violin. And that's what he did, and he became brilliant. Moved to America, went on the Ed Sullivan Show, the rest is history, as they say. But that's the first thing that I'd mention, is what an example he is of positive thinking and determination to succeed despite having a disadvantage or a setback. What I'll also say is that what I've seen of him in interviews online is he comes across an incredibly warm human being, and he likes to make jokes on stage. Sometimes he will use the same jokes, but that's fine because some of the audience wouldn't have heard them before. Like, he'll joke about having forgotten his sheet music at home or that kind of thing. Kind of oozes Jewishness, doesn't he? And Jewish humour. But now moving purely into the violinistic sphere. With the old world era, the era of distinct schools of violin playing and distinct sounds of player getting further and further away in the rearview mirror, we now enter the era of Perlman. I think he's kind of like one of those last links to the old world. I would say his style of playing is recognisable, yes, and not as clear cut as, say, Chrysler, Heifetz, Elm and Milstein. You hear those guys on the radio, you can instantly recognise them. But he does have a distinct sound, a very, very warm sound and a big sound, Stradivarius sound. But would I be wrong in saying he's up there in the top 5 players of all time? Definitely top 10 in my book. It's a very high calibre player indeed. So yes, I do have a music degree and I have studied the violin, but other than that I'm really a nobody, so just passionate about the subject. So this is where it's good to refer to what Mr Henry Roth writes about Perlman. It's clear he holds him in very high regard too. And Farmer's Tractor is not all that musical. So now let's switch to Mr Roth's book. Another thing to mention about Perlman is the crossover into film scores. So some players are able to do both, performing and and playing for music scores for films. But in Heifetz's time, it's kind of either one way or the other. So where Heifetz became a massive performer, Tosca Seidel went to work for Hollywood for film scores. So when you hear these old cartoons, the crazy perpetual motions fiddle playing that, more likely than not, that could well be Tosca Seidel playing that. With Perlman, he's managed both in his career, performing and writing or playing for film. Schindler's List being the famous example. Of course, teaching, giving masterclasses, recording art. Prolific was the word. Recording artist. He's recorded so much stuff, and he's recorded some cool stuff like Scott Joplin, some kind of Yiddish Jewish klezmer pieces. You know, he's departed a little bit from the standard repertoire. So often when you're looking for something more unusual, less commonly performed or recorded, Perlman's your man. He's likely to have recorded it. And my favourite Perlman recording, I would say, I've got many, but I would say his Spanish album, the Sarasate de Fire, that to me, that's definitely one of my favourites, because he can play Spanish style. That's his Jewish Middle Eastern background. He's got it. Not everyone can, but he knows how to interpret Spanish music amazingly well. Almost forgot. Let's look at what Rob Cowan says are definitive Perlman pieces as well. So, Itzhak Perlman, great violinist. In summary, ciao for now.